Good morning, Prep 1. How are you today? Today we are going to take drama Tales from Shakespeare, Macbeth, Part 1. Let's start with reading the text. When Duncan the Gentle ruled as King of Scotland, there lived a great lord called Macbeth. This Macbeth was a near relative of the king and was held in great honor at court for his courage in the wars. The two Scottish generals, Macbeth and Banquo, returning victorious from a great battle, were stopped by three strange figures, like women, except that they had beards and their lined skins and wild dress made them look not like any earthly creatures. Macbeth first addressed them, but each one laid a finger upon her skinny lips for silence, and the first of them called Macbeth by the name of Lord Glamis. The general was much surprised to find himself known by such creatures, but how much more when the second of them gave him the name of the Lord of Cawdor, to which honor he had no claim, and again the third called to him, O King, that shall be hereafter. Such a prophecy might well surprise him, for they knew that while the king's sons lived, he could not hope to succeed to the throne. Then turning to Banquo, they pronounced him, in a sort of riddle, to be lesser than Macbeth, and greater, not so happy, but much happier, and they prophesied that though he should never be king yet, his sons after him should be kings in Scotland. They then turned into air and disappeared, by which the generals knew them to be witches. While they stood thinking about these strange things, there arrived certain messengers from the king, who were sent by him to give Macbeth the name and the title of Cawdor. An event so strangely like the prophecy of the witches filled Macbeth with wonder, and he stood surprised, unable to make reply to the messengers, and in that moment of time swelling hopes formed in his mind that the prophecy of the third witch might in like manner be fulfilled, and that he should one day be king in Scotland. Turning to Banquo, he said, Do you not hope that your children shall be kings, when what the witches promised to me has so wonderfully come to pass? That hope, answered the general, might move you to aim at the throne, but offers these ministers of darkness tell us truths in little things, to lead us into doing evil. But the words of the witches had sunk too deep into the mind of Macbeth to allow him to attend to the warnings of the good Banquo. From that time, he bent all his thoughts on how to win the throne of Scotland. Lady Macbeth. Macbeth had a wife, to whom he told the strange prophecy of the witches and what had followed. She has a bad, ambitious woman, and if only her husband and herself could arrive at greatness, she cared not much by what means. She urged on Macbeth, and never failed to tell him that the murder of the king was necessary to the fulfillment of the prophecy. It happened at this time that the king came to Macbeth's house, attended by his two sons, Malcolm and Dunlebin, and a huge number of lords and attendants, to honor Macbeth for his success in the wars. The castle of Macbeth was built in a pleasant place. The air about it was sweet and healthy. Swallows had made their nests upon the walls of the building, and where those birds build and live, the air is known to be soft. The king entered well pleased with the place, and not less no with the attentions and the respect of his honored hostess, Lady Macbeth, who had the art of covering wicked purposes with smiles, and could look like the flower, while she was indeed the snake under it. The king, being tired with his journey, went early to bed, and in his state room two servants, as was the custom, slept beside. He had been unusually pleased with his welcome and had made presents before he went to his room to his chief officers, and among the rest had sent a rich diamond to Lady Macbeth, greeting her by the name of his most kind hostess. The murder planned. Now was the middle of night, when over half the world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams trouble men's minds, and none but the wild animal and the murderer is about. This was the time when Lady Macbeth woke to plan the murder of the king. She would not have done something so unnatural in a woman, but that she forced her husband's nature, that it was too full of the milk of human kindness to do murder. She knew him to be ambitious, but to fear wrongdoing, and not to be yet prepared for for a great crime. She had won him to agree to the murder, but she doubted his firmness, and she feared that the natural tendernesses of his heart, more gentle than her own, would come between and defeat the purpose. So, with her own hands armed to make his servants drunk, and careless of their charge, there lay Duncan in a deep sleep after the labors of his journey. But as she looked closely at him, there was something in his face as he slept which made her think of her own father, and she had not the heart to go on. She returned to speak with her husband. His determination had begun to grow weak. He now considered that they were only a subject, but a near relative of the king. He had been his host that day, and it was a host's duty to shut the door against just and merciful a king. This Duncan had been how clear of wrong towards his subjects, how loving towards his nobles, and in particular to him, that such king are the special care of heaven, and their subjects having a double duty to punish those that hurt them. Beside by the favors of the king, Macbeth stood high in the opinion of all sorts of men, and how themselves honors would be stained by the name of so terrible a murder. So Lady Macbeth found her husband turning to the better part, and descending to go no further. But she was a woman, not easily shakes from her evil purpose. She began to pour into his ears words which breathed some of her own spirit into his mind. She gave reasons, open reasons, why he should not turn from what he had promised. How easy the deed was, how soon it would be over, and how the action of one short night would give to all their knights and dames to come kingship and royal power. Then she laughed at his change of purpose and called him weak and a coward. She decided that she had given suck and knew how tender it was to love the baby that milked her, but she would, while it was smiling in her face, have pulled it from her breast and struck its brains out if she had so sworn to do it, as she had to lay the guilt of the deed upon the drunken sleepy servants. And with the courage of her tongue she so argued him that he once more made himself brave to do the bloody business. So, taking the knife in his hand, he softly crept in the dark to another knife in the air, with the handle towards him, and on the blade, and at the point of its drop of blood. And when he tried to take it, it was nothing but air, a dream rising from his own heart, and troubled the brain and the business he had in hand. The murder. Putting away this fear, he entered the king's room and killed him with one stroke of his knife, just as he had done. The murderer dreamed one of the servants who slept in the room laughed in his sleep, and the other cried murder, which woke them both. But they said a short prayer. One of them said, God bless us, and the other answered, Amen, and they turned to sleep again. Macbeth, who stood listening to them, tried to say Amen when the fellow said, God bless us, but so he had most need of blessing. The word struck in his throat, and he could not say it. Again he thought he heard a voice which cried, Sleep no more. Macbeth does murder sleep in the innocent sleep. That is the food of life. Still is cried, Sleep no more to all the houses. Glamis has murdered sleep, and therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more with such horrible ideas in his mind. Macbeth returned to his listening wife, who began to think he had failed of his purpose, and left the deed undone. He came in so disordered a state that she blamed him for want and fairness, and sent him to wash these hands of the blood which stained them. She herself took his knife, so as to stain the cheeks of the servants with blood, to make it seem their guilt. Morning came, and with it the discovery of the murder, which could not be hidden. Macbeth and his lady made great show of grief, and the proofs against the servants were strong. Yet all thought Macbeth had done the deed, since his reasons for doing it were so much stronger than such poor silly servants could be supposed to have. And Duncan's two sons escaped, Malcolm, the eldest, to the English court, and the youngest, Donalbain, to Ireland, the king's sons who should have succeeded him, having thus left by the throne empty. Macbeth was crowned king, and thus the prophecy of the witches was fulfilled. Now we have finished reading part 1 in drama. See you next time, and goodbye.